On Sundays, here again, we do this. I joined Mike on his platform. It's called the Urban Platform Speaks. If you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. Check it out. It's sports talk, but within that sports talk, a lot of real conversation. Sometimes real conversation comes out, and I love doing it because it allows me to really examine human behavior and look inside myself even more. Last Sunday, the conversation came up about Michael Jordan. It wasn't a major part of the conversation. It was just something that popped up as sometimes you try to make an example and you lean into something. And the topic was his relationship with Jerry Reinsdorf. And I felt like, maybe he don't dislike Jerry Reinsdorf, maybe only Krause, because, Jerry Reinsdorf allowed him to play baseball. And my man Tunk, and I love what he does because he poses questions and he gives his opinion, in a wise way. So he said he felt like that was just in a suspension, so he wasn't necessarily saying that cements his relationship with Reinsdorf. And he also felt like Krause was the face for Reinsdorf. And I get all that and I understand that. But within that, when he mentioned the suspension part, I was like, I used to think the same thing. Years ago, I was like, they just suspended Mike. The 17 months he was away from the NBA was some type of suspension, for some of the things he was doing and his pushback against the league in terms of making money off his name and likeness and, some of the demands he was saying, the gambling and all this stuff. So with that said, I said that. I said, I don't know. I'm now starting to believe and lean more into what Michael said about the whole baseball thing. Well, Tunk, he made a wise point. He was like, well, some of us want to believe the best in others. And I understand that. And I'm glad he said that because it made me go inside myself and really examine, what was said and really make me examine why I'm leaning more into what Michael is saying about it. And I didn't get a chance to express it because, he said some of us want to believe the best in people. And that's not really what the case was for me. I don't see things as the best or the worst. Humans live in this dichotomy that it's binary. So we got to have, if it's good, there's bad. If it's up, there's down. If it's right, there's left. But I no longer see it that way. I just see, things playing out, and people are very capable of doing things that's so-called frowned upon. I don't put anyone on a pedestal that they can't do that. Because we all are human. But I also know that the things you do that's so-called frowned upon is serving a purpose, just like the things you do that's good is serving a purpose. But the reason I'm leaning more into what Michael is saying is because over the last 6-7 years, I've really been watching how people respond to death. Death has a very profound way of impacting an individual and impacting a person's outlook on life. And also, death has a way of changing your course. I remember when I lost my friend Ronald. First I lost Darnell, then I lost Ronald. Then I had to reunite. I reunited with my son, and those things changed my course. All of a sudden now, I get inspired to share a memoir, write my story, or write, from my core and become very transparent, where before that never entered my mind. But death has a profound way of changing your outlook on things. I know when people lose a parent, how that can hit them and how that can influence them. So when you look at Michael Jordan and his dad and the nature of their relationship, and his dad always wanting him to play baseball, I can see when he loses his dad, I can see how that could have such a profound impact that now he wants to pursue that, because ultimately it might be a thing that keeps him connected to his father's spirit and his father's essence. I don't think Michael Jordan would allow his dad's death, because when you lose a parent, that's huge, And I don't think he would allow his dad's death to be used by the NBA as some type of cover up for some sort of suspension. I remember watching the Last Dance documentary, and it was a gentleman on Michael Jordan's security staff. I think he either worked for the Bulls Stadium or the security staff. He was an older gentleman. And Michael started clinging to this individual like crazy because he saw him as a father figure, and he was searching for that energy, that fatherly energy found in his dad. He was searching for it, still wanting to cling to it. And I think he clung to this gentleman and looked at him as a father figure. And those two became really close, very similar and very reminiscent, to his dad. And also, I could see him going to baseball because his father was someone he always wanted his dad's approval. He was always seeking his dad's approval. When he was little, his dad always let his brother Larry work on cars with him and stuff like that. And his father seemed to, and these is Michael's words, he felt like his father was favoring Larry. So Larry became the number one thing on Mike's target. And he was competing with Larry with everything. This is why Michael used to compete so hard against Larry playing basketball, because he wanted his dad's approval. He wanted his dad to see him in the light that he saw his brother Larry. So I could actually see how Michael would, the death of his father would alter Michael's course for a little while and send him down the baseball path, So, like I said, man, death has a profound way of altering our outlook and also changing the course of our direction and sending us down a path that we didn't know we would go down. But ultimately, it's all part of, what we're destined to do. That's it, man. Y'all check out the Urban Platform Speaks. It's pretty good, man. Sometimes, like all content, can be redundant, but at the same time, so many good things come out of those conversations. Y'all have a great day, man. I love y'all. Godspeed.